The FCA's Lunch and Learn today. Today's webinar is hosted by Operandio, and Operandio are Palladium partners of the FCA. We've got Adem and Tarzo here today, and Tarzo is also a Vic Chapter Committee member. So definitely both leaning in to the FCA and the franchise community. So we're also joined by Jay.
Hello.
Everyone, and of course Baxter is driving everything this morning. Yeah, very stressed. But welcome. Today is going to be an interesting next 40 minutes or so. We're going to talk about setting franchisees up for success. But today will be a full interactive session. So if you do have some questions along the way, pop them in the chat and we'll certainly get them answered. But there'll be a fair bit of interaction from all of you. And we've also been joined by Tim from Franchise Expo. How's that? And we're in our new offices here at 10 Queen Street, if anyone wants to visit. So without further ado, I'll introduce you all over to Adem.
Thank you, and wonderful to see everybody online. I really appreciate you making the time during your lunch break for our Lunch and Learn. We are definitely friends of the FCA. I'm going to stop sharing my desktop and see if I can share my window. Hopefully everyone should see a navy blue presentation pop up on the screen. So just by orientation, if anyone joined the fans conference a couple of weeks ago over in Wellington, some of this might be familiar, but we wanted to share a little bit of what came out of our discussion and the focus group that we ran at that session around setting franchisees up for success. So through today's session, you'll have an opportunity via the chat to contribute, and we'd love your input and to continue to evolve the conversation. For those of you who we haven't met before, Adem Hassoli, I'm our General Manager of Commercial Operations at Operandio, and I have Tarzo Cruz, who many of you may know from Franchise Lab.
Yeah, so Tarso Cruz from Franchise Lab, account manager for both Franchise Lab and Operandio, passionate about franchise, member of the Big Chapter FCA, and I know some of you guys can see some familiar face. So hello, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And you've spent quite a big part of your career in franchising.
Exactly. So back to Brazil, I used to help business to convert into franchising, and that's how I fell in love with franchising. So being in Australia, work with a few amazing brands has been just such an incredible experience.
Well, we appreciate your insight. And for me, it feels a little bit of a full circle moment. So I started my career in banking, but working in private and corporate banking with franchise businesses who were scaling through their corporate bank. So working a lot with founders and owners as they were growing their businesses on the corporate side, and some 20 odd years later, back on the other side, now working with franchisors with technology and helping scale their business in the modern era. In case we're new to you, Operandio is building the future of franchise operating intelligence. We are a franchise management platform that supports franchise businesses from recruiting new franchise partners through onboarding them and understanding all of their obligations as part of the franchising code, right through to training and sharing the daily operational tools for franchisees to be successful. And so, one of the things that really sets us apart is we want to understand what's happening. We really want to dive deep into the problems that franchisors and franchisees are facing on a day-to-day basis, and to be able to support you with better tools, insight and intelligence to be able to run your networks. We feel really fortunate. At the end of last year, we acquired Franchise Lab, which many of you may know is a dedicated franchise recruitment tool, known probably more affectionately through the sector as the Nathan Profiler, built on Greg Nathan's methodology. And so we're in the process of integrating that as part of our overall stack. And so why does that matter? It's because the way in which we look at franchises, we want to build our solution with you. We feel that we have a really interesting vantage point because we get to see it all across the franchise journey. So everything from attracting and recruiting franchise partners right through to the onboarding and setting them up for success as they come into your system, and then all of the daily operations that happen thereafter in their businesses. And so we have customers at every stage. And I guess where it starts is with the richest insight, which is around that recruitment stage and bringing new franchise partners in or transitioning franchise partners through your network. And so we have, such rich insight around what sets quality franchisees apart. And we work with a number of franchise businesses around how to improve that connection and filter to make sure that you're bringing great people into your business to improve your network. And then with the sector, we're building our solution in partnership. So we feel really fortunate that we have a number of franchise Hall of Fame members that sit on our advisory board. And we've got a number of franchise executives through our customer base that are working with us to kind of shape our solution. And so we really appreciate you contributing to that conversation. I guess what we have come to learn over many years working in the sector is franchisor sees themselves as having one main job, which is making the franchisee successful. Whether you sign more of them or grow the network, ensuring that as many of your franchise partners are as successful as possible is what is critical, because everything tends to follow from that. And so, what we know is that when the franchisee grows and they're more successful, the whole system grows. It gives the franchisor more opportunity to reinvest in the network and the system. The whole value of the network goes up, and you're working in partnership. And so that gives the opportunity to grow wealth together. And so for franchisees coming into the system who are looking to grow wealth, who are my first business, investing in them is essentially investing in yourself and your system. And so the key question is, the question that we ask is, then what matters most in setting them up to succeed? And how do we get that right as we can to ensure that once they're in operating mode, that they have the best chance of success? So there is an instinctive answer, which I'm sure many of you kind of go through, and that is that if you attract the right candidates into your franchise partner pipeline, you then pick well, and bring in the right franchise partners. You have your operating system that you systemize and you train them on, and then you support them early, and then stay close as they're operating. That tends to be the kind of secret for success. But what we understand also is that the things that really drive success are probably the less obvious things that are sitting right under our nose. And so sometimes we're a little bit too close to see them, or we're so focused on our own franchise system that perhaps we're not as aware of some of the other things that are happening across the sector. And so what we wanted to do is bring some of that intelligence back into this conversation and share feedback from others that we have been working with over the years. And so we got a little bit curious, and we set out to ask the sector. A few weeks ago, we were presenting at the Fans Conference in Wellington, and we ran a live interactive session with a number of franchise community. In the room, we had over 60 franchise sector leaders across Australia and New Zealand, over 40 organisations or businesses represented, and across 12 different sectors of the industry, including a number of businesses that had made the trip across from Australia. And so we saw that as a really awesome opportunity to kind of ask some really key questions and get some information back. And that's what we want to share with you today.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting because we have all this playbook that we kind of follow as a franchisor. We need to recruit good franchisees, train them properly, and support them. And we, as company, Operandio and Franchise Lab, we have a bit of a bias around this conversation. So we thought bringing this view from the fans experience we had, this large chat with the community, would be interesting, because it's not just about what we know and what we have as daily conversation, but what people around us are seeing on franchise happening. So a few interesting insights we'll share today.
And please feel free on the way through, if anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to take you through the exercise that we ran, and we'll give everyone an opportunity to contribute as well. So how we run it is we ask 3 key questions in real time with AI listening. And we then use the AI tools within the Operandio system to be able to aggregate and share information back to the network around what they said were the most important factors in success. So the 3 questions, which we'll take you through in a moment. So one is around recruitment. What makes a great partner? How do you know before any money changes hand or any agreement is being put in place? How do you assess for fit? How do you support the appropriate selection of franchise partners? And then how do you know that they're the ones that are going to be able to be successful in the site that you're putting them into? Question 2 is around that onboarding journey, which goes beyond the compliance requirements for ensuring that you have met all of your franchising code of conduct activities, but then around what makes the biggest difference in that first 90 days. So as you're introducing them into your system, as they're becoming more familiar with how you operate, and then really setting them up for success. And then question 3 is, what is the secret sauce that helps them thrive? And what skills actually decide success once they're up and running and more independent as part of your system? And so to kick off, we thought we'd put it to you, and then we'll share some of the insight that we had, but we'd be interested by your chat. What matters most to you when you're choosing a franchise partner? And we'd be interested in sort of a word or a line that you might be able to share. So I'll give you sort of 30 seconds to pop it in. And if anyone's happy to volunteer, we're happy for you to call out. Back so you can see who's online in the room and then coming through.
See Charlie typing away there, so I'm sure we'll be able to see.
We might
The willingness to work
in the business. Fantastic. Tyler, do you want to share a little bit of insight around some of the research and?
Yeah, I guess behind a candidate, there is multiple factors that can lead them to become a successful franchisee. We know brand passion is a strong predicator of success. So if someone loves the brand that they are about to become franchisee or business partner, it definitely have some impact in their further life as a franchisee. But also we understand that someone to follow the process of a specific brand, they need to be willing to be coachable and be open to learn. So there is a few different factors that can impact in this decision, if it makes sense to bring someone to your network or not. And it was interesting to see what the fans community had to tell us, because it aligns a lot with what we've seen as science behind a franchise selection. So from the room, 50% mentioned that what makes a great franchise partner is coachability and growth mindset. So definitely when we are talking about replicate a business, we need someone that can absorb all the knowledge that franchisors have. So I think it's quite aligned. I'm just curious to understand if we have any other comments around with a different opinion.
Well, these were some of the voices in the room. So this was some of the feedback that we received. And Charlie, heads up, we might hand over to you in a moment to share your experience. But what we heard in the words were, franchisees are selected. So not just because they're not just handed a business because they have money, they need to have the right attributes and characteristics to be able to operate a business successfully and to be able to work as part of a broader ecosystem, a network of businesses, and supporting each other. Often if they come in making demands, it tends to be a red flag, in particular around finance or location. And so watching out for those early signs, both green and red flags around, how they're presenting and the questions that they're asking is equally important. Because as much as you're assessing them as a potential franchise partner candidate for your network, they're assessing you, your culture, your business, and the experience that they'll receive as joining the business. And then this came through from probably from a lot of the work that Joel has been sharing over the last sort of couple of months on his trust engine. But they've checked you out. They've gone to your social media. They understand your business. They've done their research, and they come asking really good questions. And Charlie, do you mind sharing a little bit, I guess, your insight around their willingness to work in the business, which we know is a really critical factor for success?
Yeah, I think I've realised, obviously, when I wrote that comment that I should have clarified that specific to our business. but obviously being in the cafe business, the margin, often the franchisees that work in the business make the biggest margins because they're involved in the creation of the sales and the control of the cost. This isn't a business that can be run from home or from an office outside. They need to be actually on the front counter in the business. And without a shadow of a doubt, I can state that the most successful franchisees we have are the ones that are invested, involved, and present in their business on a regular basis. Yes, we have some franchisees that have been with us a very long time that have set their business up so they have good, well-trained, loyal managers, but they're pretty rare. The involvement is we're not looking for franchisees that are looking just for an investment, and they can sort of sit back or go and do other things. Unfortunately, ours is a hands-on business. Now, that may not be true for every franchisor, but certainly for us, it's the most important thing for us.
Thank you. Was there any other comments or anyone that wanted to add something around their experiences with, I guess, the recruitment stage and how to select a franchise?
I don't know. I mean, Doug, you used to be a director of Foodco. Would you agree with that? Tag, you're it.
That was 20 years ago, Charlie.
Yeah.
And you still look young.
Well, I guess, what does that mean in terms of opportunity? So I appreciate you sharing, Charlie, as well, is here are some tips that came up in terms of, well, what can you do? So how do you increase the chances of franchise partner selection success? So with the insight around coachability is maybe test for it before any money changes hands or the agreements are signed. And what does that look like tangibly or practically? Is putting candidates in real situations and watching how they take feedback. So case study approaches, giving them some time in store and watching how they operate within your environment will tell you more than any other interview. And it's really hard to fake coachability for multiple days on the floor, especially when they're working in a real life scenario. Two is around giving them something to learn and then seeing what they do with it. If we believe that growth mindset and coachability is a critical factor in success, then giving them access to a training program or seeing how they work within the training system that you're putting forward might give you early insight as to how they'll adapt long term. And then the third, which I might just ask Tauzo for a little bit of insight, is around taking some additional steps around behavioural profiling and making that a standard part of your assessment. So getting some independent benchmarking that allows you to have a more objective view of their characteristics and their approach.
Yeah, definitely. I guess there is a few attributes or behavior profile traits that we can identify quite quickly in a conversation, but a few of them requires a bit of assessment and deep research. So it's a bit tricky. But I would say the first one, to put a candidate in the real situation, is something that can add lots of value to our recruitment process. Lots of franchisors, they use a discovery day, which is a day where the franchisee goes to a store and they spend one day in the store, which can be quite interesting. You can find out lots of interesting things about someone in this discovery day, but one day sometimes not enough. So we have franchisors, as Guzman Gomez shared with us in the franchising forum a few weeks ago, about their 1 year training program where they spend in the store and they can be kicked off of this process at any stage. But we also have, at the other hand, some brands do just have like 1 or 2 days in presence training. So we've got different extremes, but my tip is have more than 1 day with a franchisee, in a candidate franchisee in a store, so you can understand better about their traits and if they are they have a bit of a coachability or not.
Doug.
Yeah, this is actually something I did introduce at Foodco 21 years ago, Charlie, the on-the-job evaluations. I'm not sure if you guys still do that, but that's something that GYG and McDonald's do, is give somebody an opportunity to come and work in store and observe those core competencies firsthand, rather than just sitting across a table from someone. That can work really well, whether it be 1 day, 3 hours, or 3 days. That's something that's worth considering.
Yeah. So we've now selected a great franchise partner who's well aligned with our business, our culture, and our values, and we're confident that they're going to fit within our system. Now we're interested in, well, how do we onboard them to make sure that they get the best opportunity for ramp up for success? And so what we want you to think about is, you know, your best franchisee or your best franchise partners, and what made the most difference in that first 90 days. So in that first 3 months, how did they present, or what was something that you did as a franchisor that helped to set them up for success? One thing that actually moved the needle. So we'll give you a second to drop in the chat. I'm happy to pick on people, or maybe we'll get Helen and Baxter to pick on people. Whilst you're thinking, perhaps we'll skip forward. So one of the things that came from the conversation was that onboarding needs to be a relationship, not just an information transfer. So those onboarding processes that follow a checklist without human connection and the establishment of that franchisor and field manager relationship really tend to struggle down the line. And so beyond a mountain of information, making sure that information is accessible and people are accessible through that becomes really important.
Yeah, I guess this onboarding process usually is full of new concepts, knowledge, and articles. People need to learn a lot, and sometimes can be overwhelming. So investing in the relationship is something quite important, because it's a long-term relationship. We understand that this onboarding is the foundation of this long-term relationship. So we need to invest good time with people.
And other things that came through were around setting financial expectations early. We are running businesses. We want to make sure that, you know, in terms of the financial acumen and the ability to run that business effectively, those skills are demonstrated early, and also early wins, which build confidence. And so things that came through was, you know, again, spending time in an existing branch with a good franchisee, hands-on production in the store. So focusing on the detail, getting a real feel for what it looks like. And someone mentioned having a big old party at the beginning of the relationship to really cement the culture and introduce them in. Pardon me, but Jason, you shared something on the chat. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your experience and how that worked?
Yeah, the way, for those of us that have done, whether it be Scrum or some sort of agile methodology, really ensuring the franchisee can do everything 100% before moving on to the next thing. I think when I see franchisees struggle is when an entire support office hits them with 15 things to learn in one day, 1 week. So the pre-work comes from just ensuring they're 100% capable in each area pre-opening. And then the agile part comes from having the whole team there. And I know with Bakers and what we do now with Explore and Develop is the entire team are on site for the first week or two, hand in hand. And the key part of that is you want to see the franchisee start the way you want them to go. I think the trajectory you put them on and the path they take from day one usually will ripple for the next, say, 10 or 15 years. So, yeah.
And Charlie, I'm going to hold your comment for a moment because it comes up on the next screen and I'd love to hear your insight. So thank you for sharing, Jace. So what are some other things that you can do tangibly that kind of really help to cement the relationship in that first 90 days? And you know, we're a technology company, but we believe in kind of human connection as the, you know, the essence of all good relationships. And so building the first 90 days around a person and not a portal makes all the difference. And so 3 things that came across really strongly in terms of, you know, tangible things you can do. One is buddying every new franchisee with one of your best operators. And so giving them the opportunity to work alongside their peers, you know, probably helps more than any training room session, especially because then it helps them create a network, gives them other avenues for communication. And so we've seen lots of franchise businesses that are creating those kind of community discussion groups or partnering up or creating a mentor program within the business. Really, I think this is part of what you were sharing, Jason, and experience at Bakers is around front-loading field support in the first few weeks. So getting as many people around the new franchise partner, they feel the support, they feel more comfortable asking those early questions, but it also gives you the opportunity to observe how they're operating in real time and to understand where you may need to provide additional support. And again, leaning on that kind of human connection first is making that first check-in human. So as much as can be there in person with them as they're going through the onboarding. Charlie, is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of that, I guess, buddying up or the connection piece with existing franchisees?
No, I think you've nailed it. I mean, the only thing we say is you'll learn as much from our long-term franchisees as you'll learn from us.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
And yeah, it's quite interesting because satisfaction usually hits its lowest point at year 3 to 5. So we understand it. We have a bit of a research behind it. And it's during this onboarding process where we can build good relationship to avoid any problem in this lowest level of satisfaction. So it's all about building good community, good relationship and communication with franchisee now to avoid further problems.
So we've selected a great franchise partner. We've now taken them through their onboarding. They're now part of our system. Now it's around how do we help them thrive and really turn into a successful force. And so what we're interested in, what makes the most what is the most underrated skill in a successful franchisee. This could be something that, you know, perhaps is a little bit less obvious, or maybe we haven't screened for in our recruitment, but comes through your experience around, you know, what are the things that surprised you in terms of the skills or traits that made the biggest difference in terms of long-term success? Well, we'll give everyone a minute. So what we heard from our group was that the most underrated skills are probably the ones that we assume that our franchise partners have. Remembering that they are coming in as a business operator and business owner, they will need to not just be able to operate and run and work in the business, and it probably comes back to your earlier point, Charlie, around they have to be able to work in and on the business. So being able to hire and lead a team, so people management, them being able to recruit good people into their business, dedicating time to work on the business. So actually recognizing that it requires investment in business planning, financial reviewing, making sure that they're constantly thinking about how they grow and optimize their business operations. And then regular active learning and feedback. And so making sure that they're taking the time to reflect on any lessons or challenges, and then putting that back into their operational practices. So some things that we heard from the room. Sales obviously is critically important, and being able to kind of sell. Local store marketing and digital marketing more increasingly such an important part of the franchise partner responsibility. And for those of you who have had the opportunity to hear Joel speak about the trust engine, speaks a lot about, you know, franchise partners now having or bringing that skill set or being educated around content development, promoting their business, local area marketing, and giving them the skills and tools to be able to take ownership of driving that engagement in their community. And then understanding the numbers of the business. Jason, you shared people management and communication skills. Do you want to add a little bit more context?
Oh, I think, look, for all the university certificates and work experience, the hardest thing we all do is managing people and communicating, isn't it? Quite often, most of us in franchising will have dedicated local marketing, dedicated financial support. It's the stuff that happens at the store level or the service level where it usually can go wrong. So, you know, we're looking for, in the very early stages, a high level of communication, paraphrasing, you know, some of those basic skills, and I think also experience with dealing with different generations of team members. The old say and do days of management are well and truly behind us, and we're looking for, you know, some leading questions in the interview stage around how they would manage a team member in a difficult situation and so on, and looking for that very early in our recruitment process.
Thank you.
Lots of soft skills, right? We sometimes just focus in sales and identify and digesting numbers, understand like P&L or something like this, and forget that there's lots of relationship in any kind of business, and franchise is not different.
And so that's, I guess, leads into what can you do, and that is really around developing the skills you're assuming in your franchise partner, or at least reviewing your onboarding and training programs to ensure that you're incorporating some of those softer skills. So putting people skills into that development plan right next to the product or system or operation skills. So making sure that, if leading a team decides success, or if customer service is a huge part of your value proposition, it's investing in those skills and training programs that allow you to continue to build that skill set and evolve it in your franchise partner network. Treating local marketing and community as a taught skill. Certainly obvious to me is younger generation and Gen Z are very familiar and comfortable being in front of the camera and using social media to build their own personal brand and connection. Not as intuitive for some of us. I know I struggle a little bit, although thankfully it's for AI for giving us some extra arms and legs in that area. But really around being able to teach some of that skills and some of those foundational skills so that they can participate, which is becoming an increasingly important marketing channel for businesses. And make numbers a day one conversation. So don't assume financial literacy or commercial acumen, but really kind of help to show them how those skills can help them run a better business. Was there any final thoughts before we moved on to next part? Well, I guess what was interesting was Rose, thank you for contributing. Did you want to share your thought before we moved on?
What do you mean? There is a
Maybe not, but that's all right. Thank you. Rose was just sharing that it's important to recognise franchisees come from all cultures and backgrounds. So patience is also important, and making sure that you give them the time and the ownership of their business. So thank you for sharing that.
That's
one of the things
sorry,
that,
I lost there, isn't it?
No, that's right. Are you there, Rose?
Sorry. So yeah, just as you say, for years, I suppose we've looked at the franchise relationship institute and what they have been able to teach, us to teach the franchisees, and that's been very, very important over that time. Relationship is key. Yep.
And so knowing all of that and now going through and understanding those factors of success, then the question we ask is, well, then why does it go wrong sometimes? And I guess the less obvious thing, or the blind spot that sort of comes through in this reflection, is that we recruit people who want guidance, we onboard them through our relationships, and then over time we leave them on their own, or perhaps the support reduces in us and gets redirected into our new franchise partners. And so it doesn't fail, but it might fade over time. Field visits might get shorter, the check-ins might become a self-assessment audit. And so the person that you chose because they wanted guidance, they were coachable, and they wanted access to training and system, now is left on their own potentially to continue to run and evolve their business. And so it does become over time a visibility problem. So not having those regular data points or interventions to be able to continually assess and revisit the relationship means that you can't support what you can't see. And so what closes the gap is really that relationship intelligence. And so the system and information to be able to see every franchisee relationship at every stage of that journey that we've spoken about. And so support at day 900 looks the same as it did at day 9. And they're continuing to be able to either learn from your group or to be able to give back and to share their insights and learnings with others that are coming through into the network. And so, when we're thinking about recruiting, are we choosing partners for the traits that actually predict success? And how do we assess for those? What are some of the tools, assessments, and information that we can collect on the way through that allow us to ensure that we're recruiting for the right people? As we're onboarding, is the first 90 days that real relationship? Does our onboarding journey go beyond our compliance? And does it have steps in place that allow us to build relationships, to foster a two-way communication channel, and really embed them with our system? Or is it a series of paperwork and just a handover into their operating business? When we're training new franchise partners, do they have the people and leadership skills that we assume? And are we just teaching them our system to come in and to run their business? And what are the soft skills that make the biggest difference within your franchise network? And then once they're operating and they're on their own, can every franchisee find and do what matters on a day-to-day basis? Have you been able to share some of those best practices, knowledge, and operational tools that allow them to deliver on every shift, and then to share those insights with their team? And then around compliance, which is so important, is your compliance proactive, or are you waiting for an audit to fail, or is there something that's happening after that might become a problem quicker because you haven't had the visibility? And so the reason why it compounds is because each stage of that flywheel, each stage of it makes the next one easier, and that's the flywheel. So if we attract well, we get to choose from strength. If we choose from strength, we get to onboard deliberately and with purpose. If we're onboarding with purpose, we equip our franchise partners to win, and then they stay, they grow, and they bring you more, both in terms of intelligence back to your network that you can then share with new franchise partners joining, but also with referrals and other opportunities to continue to grow the business, whether it's through multi-unit ownership or other people that they're bringing into your network. And so if you equip them to win, they grow, and then they bring you the next franchise partner. And so I guess, how do you get all of that working in one place? And that's the kind of key question. There's so many different parts of the franchise management journey, right from recruiting for coachability, through to onboarding your relationships, to the training that you need to build the skills library to share, right through to day-to-day operational support and compliance. It's a lot to hold together across 10 systems. And I guess this is where some of our insight is that, you know, many franchisees and franchisors are struggling with multiple systems, disconnected information flow, fractured knowledge, and you know, fast evolving technology and rapidly changing operating information. And so Operandio is trying to solve that problem by bringing all of that into one place for you. Be interested on your reflections on, I guess, what we've shared, if there's any sort of final thoughts or comments around the franchising life cycle, your experience in your own business, and where potentially there's something that you take away from today's session that you might like to focus on or have a think about.
Yeah.
Are there any final thoughts?
No, I guess it's an interesting conversation because one of the first slides that we presented today was about building good relationships, and franchisors just thrive as a business when franchisees thrive. So what we present today is a bit of what we franchisors can do to help franchisees to have a better outcome from their business. And as we can see, it's a lot about relationships. So we as a tech company talking about relationship is a bit funny, but it's not just us, it's what franchisors mentioned. And I guess the attendees here today also dropped some good comments around that. So it's all about how can we build better connections and relationships, isn't it?
Well, thank you to the Franchise Council for allowing us to come and share some of our insight and learnings with you. As we mentioned earlier, as an organisation, we don't exist unless we're talking to franchisors regularly around the problems that they're trying to solve or how they're looking to better support their franchise partners. And so thank you for your contribution today, but also we welcome the opportunity to hear from you if there's any particular problem or pain point that's sitting in your business, we'd love your perspective around, you know, what's not working or what could work better, and what we would need to do to be able to help you in supporting a better solution for your franchise network. So thank you.
Thank you, Adem. Thank you, Tazo. And I guess, I mean, the key thing there was that relationship intelligence, and that it's not just that end game, it's everything that leads up to the whole process and beyond. And those 3 questions, I think, were great to get people thinking. Now, quite a few of you got out of today because with this new system, I can't see you all.
Yeah.
And we can only see a couple of the usual suspects that are up on our screen. So apologies to Jason and Charlie and Doug for picking on you. And thank you, Rose, for piping in. But I know there's quite a few of you behind those screens that didn't contribute. But I'll be sending a recording out of this webinar today and a slide deck of everything that was presented and how to get in contact with Adem and Tazo from Operandio. So thank you very much. And next Lunch and Learn coming up is on the 22nd of July, and it is hosted by Gates, our insurance brokers, and we will be looking at compliance, visibility and accountability, but on the more exciting platform, they have built an interactive platform that franchisors and franchisees can use for insurance. So we will be showcasing that, and a lot of